Okay, guys, wake up. New Gorosei dropped last night. I know, no one expected this. We knew the patch was going to be dropping, but it just happened by surprise last night. All right, so let's download this and let's see what's going on. Really excited to try out Garling's character. He has a lot of really cool special moves. My favorite one, you guys saw it in the trailer, that move where he takes out his sword and cuts somebody, knocks them into the air, and then they fall back down and he impales them on his moon head. That was really cool. So we're going to see that. Also, they've added customizable outfits to the Gorosei in this version, and oh god, is it finally time for that. Look, I love the classic look of the Gorosei. They all have their nice suits and their cloaks and everything, but having the customizable outfits, like an entire wardrobe for them, of course, it's microtransactions. If you really want Ethan to dress up like a clown, it's gonna cost you a little bit, but I think it might be worth it, right? Oh, and another thing too, they've added for the Room of Authority. I've been saying this for a while. I'm really glad they added this. So, you ever play like Roller Coaster Tycoon growing up? I never played Roller Coaster Tycoon. I just had Ski Resort Tycoon, but I made a damn good ski resort. But they're going to be basically doing that with the Room of Authority. It's this big open space that you can add various attractions and things into. There is a roller coaster, actually, but you got to unlock a bunch of stuff before that. It's a whole thing, but I'm really excited. The game's looking good, and it's getting places, so let's check it out. Okay, number one, I would play that game. Number two, kind of, right? Like, dude, Garling walked into the Room of Authority with a level of authority. He was waiting for that invitation. In fact, I don't think he just got that invitation and he was like, oh, you know, Saint Figarland, Garling, you will be the new member of the Gorosei. And he's like, what, huh? No, I think Eam and Garling were in talks before this, all right? I think Eam went up to Garling at one point, even though he's not supposed to reveal himself to the world or whatever. Eam went up to Garling at one point and was just like, Garling, I'm sorry, my voice. Anyway, yeah, so one of the Gorosei, I mean, you want to be one? That's great. The spots are all filled right now, but if one of them messes up royally, which I feel like is going to happen, I might be able to see the future. I don't know. But in the future, if something happens, because all this crazy stuff's going on in the new world with, like, the Straw Hats, and it's insane. So if one of the Gorosei really messes up, I'm going to kick them out, and you're going to be next in line. So keep that suit pressed and ready to go. And Garling was like, oh, yeah. So he got the call. He was ready, man, right? The only way that could have been more cool is if he walked in like doing a disco dance or something. Do you remember the 21st night of September? He just walks into disco music. There's a disco ball in the Room of Authority for some reason, right? Because keep in mind, all the other Gorosei are like hundreds of years old, right? You know, at least Saturn was at least 200. You know, the others are probably much older than that. And, you know, and Garling's coming in here. He's like 86, man, and he's just like, I'm going to change things around here. Oh, yeah. Right? So, yeah, he goes in, sits right down on the chair of authority in the Room of Authority. Oh, poor Mars. Really poor Mars. Mars was like, wait a minute, Saturn is gone. Does that mean I finally get to sit down? And then before Mars can, like, go sit down, that's when Garling just plops himself down in Saturn's chair, like, didn't move quick enough. All right, next time. I guess we'll find out next time, right? All right, so, you know, to get serious here for a moment, yes, Garling is now a new member of the Gorosei, replacing Saturn as the godhead of science and defense, scientific defense. Is Garling a scientist? I mean, was Saturn really a scientist? That's the question. I know he said he was to Vegapunk, like, yes, Vegapunk, you forget yourself. I'm something of a scientist myself. I hooked up my original Super Nintendo all by myself when I was only 5 years old. So I know a thing or two about science, right? You know, Vegapunk is like, yeah, sure, okay, that's great. He goes back to, like, disassembling molecules and, like, making clones of himself, right? You know, doing complicated surgery on his own brain. And then Saturn's over there, like, I don't know, doing those little kits that you can make, like, connect LED lights to. He's like, oh, look at that, I made a light. You know, I made an on and off switch. Isn't that cool? Scientist. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure at least Garling is more ahead of the times than Saturn was, so I think he's going to be fine on that front. Okay, so a couple things to address here. The name, so all of the Gorosei are named after planets, and then you have Saint Figarland Garling joining, so there's a question there. He obviously is based off of the moon, but also of the stars, because if you saw in the last chapter when he sat down, we got to see Garling from the front. And if you look at his hair from the front, it has the two spikes coming up for the crescent moon from the side, but then he also has two coming off on his sides too. I don't know how the hell he styles his hair, but whatever. Well, he doesn't style his hair. You know, he has somebody do it for him. He's still a Tenryubito. But from the front, it looks like it's a star. You know? So that's actually pretty cool. So it's like the stars and the moon. Keep in mind that Gorosei. So remember we used to call them the 5 elder stars before we started calling them the 5 elder planets. It's because that kanji for sei just means kind of like celestial bodies. And that can encompass planets, but also stars. And remember, for a long time on our planet, the moon was considered a planet in its own right. In fact, I think there was a period of time where the moon was considered a planet, but the Earth itself was not considered a planet yet, you know, so it fits. The celestial body naming thing still fits. I think we're fine there. As for the name, a lot of people have brought up that in Greek, the name for moon is Fengari. Okay, which kind of sounds similar to Figarland. Not really, but like you could bend it a little bit to make it make sense. By the way, they're cutting down a dead tree in my side yard right now, so if you hear like large machinery in the background, I don't know if my mic's picking it up that well, but that's what that is. Anyway, so yeah, that's Garling, and maybe they might change his name around. People have said, well, what about like Luna or something like that, because that's like also means moon or something. It's just like, yeah, possibly. I don't really know. I'm assuming the Gorosei's names were altered a bit when they did join just to fit with the planet motif, especially since from now that we kind of know this, these are not the original Gorosei that existed during the Void Century. It wasn't Jay and Peter and Ethan and Marcus and Topman all the way back, 800, 900 years ago. I think at least one of them were maybe around all the way back then, and I think that was Ethan. Ethan Baron Venus Juro, because he dresses a little different from all the other ones, and he has the Shodai Kitetsu, and he probably is maybe the original Kitetsu, like the guy that forged it. He might be from Wano originally, so maybe he was from the original group, but everybody else, I think, was added later or replaced. Okay, so we have that kind of going on there now. So yeah, I think you get recruited into the Gorosei from the Gods Knights pool, like whoever is the supreme or the Gods Knights, or maybe a really exemplary God Knight gets promoted into the Gorosei, because there's really nowhere else to go higher up than that, really. It goes Gods Knights, and then Gorosei, and then Eam at the very top, unless we find out that Eam also has a boss. At the end of One Piece, it turns out that Eam is just one of, well, actually, Eam is one of the original families that founded the world government, so the Straw Hats are gonna fight, like, we know Lily left, so 18 other ones. There's 18 other ghost characters from the Void Century. Ooh! You know, like, they're gonna have to fight against the original king of, like, the Don Quixote family. Ooh! You know, that's gonna be fun, right? So, yeah, this has definitely happened before, probably not super often, but I think the Gorosei are aware of what it means to fail Eam. So when they were all like really like, hey, Saturn, you gotta summon us to Egghead. There is no more time. We gotta stop this. It was because they knew that, like, if we fail, there are consequences. There isn't just, like, we're not at the top of the world like everybody thinks. If we fail, Eam could literally rip out our immortality and make us die right there on the spot, which we saw that with Saturn in the last chapter. So let's talk about their powers. So, Garling now is obviously going to be given the gift of immortality, just like all the other Gorosei are. They're not born with that power. I don't think it's a power that's given to them through the Devil Fruits. We saw that in the last chapter. There might be a way that you can incorporate Devil Fruit abilities and the immortality all in one thing, but there was very clearly a moment where Eam is sucking out their power from Saturn. I'm taking my power back! You have failed me! Kind of like that scene in like One Punch Man, if you ever saw that, with like God taking away the power from like Homeless Emperor or something like that. That's kind of what it reminded me of. So it's possible that maybe Eam gave a mythical zone to the Gorosei, like, oh, Peter, you will have the sandworm zone. And Peter's like, I always wanted to be a worm, thank you. And then he's like, then I will also give you immortality, but I will take it away if you displease me, or something like that, right? So I guess there is a way that you could do that there. I'm hesitant to say that the mythical zones themselves give you immortality, like it's something, because then it seems like kind of isolated from Eam, unless Eam like created the mythical zones themselves. But I'm really not feeling that. I'm really feeling like they're not devil fruit abilities. Eam has this power, somehow obtained it, not sure how Eam got the power originally. Eam could just be the god of the ocean, gave it to the Gorosei, and then can take it out whenever they so desire, right? Now, but here's the thing. We're gonna find out how this process works pretty quickly, because I do not think Garling is immortal quite yet. I think this is actually going to show us a very rare opportunity to see how a Gorosei receives their power. We just went through a whole story arc at Egghead where we're sitting there like, what the hell is going on with the Gorosei? They could turn into giant yokai monsters. They're immortal. You could hit them and they just regenerate. You could blow off their heads and they just regenerate. Like, what's going on with this? How do you kill them, right? So we're all confused on exactly how this works. Well, now there's a new member joining. This is a perfect time for Oda. We could have a scene like in Bleach when Uryu goes to sit down with Yuha to become a member of the Stern Ritter, has to like drink his blood or whatever to get a script. We could kind of do that with Garling. Next time we could see Garling, kneeling down before Eam, and Eam appears and it's just like, I will give you your power now, Garling. And it could be any number of things for like this ritual. It could be just like Eam presents a devil fruit to Garling, and then Garling eats it, and there it is. Maybe that's the entire ritual. We'll see how that goes. Or Eam could take out like a knife and like, drink of my blood, Garling, and accept immortality. And Garling is like, do I have to? It's like, do I have to drink it right out of your hand? Can I have I have a wine goblet. Fine, whatever you prefer. It's like, okay. Glug, glug, glug. Tastes like ginger ale. And then he becomes immortal that way. It's totally possible, right? You could do that, right? So we're probably gonna see this process be done, right? And whatever form that Garling will take, whatever his yokai form will be, I don't think it's gonna be a giant spider. I don't think it's gonna be the Ushioni like it was with Saturn. For one thing, I feel like that just is like lame for the sake of like creativity on Oda's part. You know what I mean? Like Oda could make a whole new, like, you know how many yokai exist out there in like Japanese lore and stuff? There's like hundreds, right? I was like, oh well, he will become the new Ushioni. He will be a giant Spider-Man. It's like, no, there's so many other yokai out there to choose from. And we've yet to see a Tyrannosaurus Rex in One Piece too. Can Garling become the Tyrannosaurus Rex? I know it doesn't make much sense for a yokai theme, but like, Peter's a sandworm. That doesn't fit with the yokai theme either. I mean, kinda. But like, whatever. Can we have a giant lizard? Like, that'd be neat. The Tyrannosaurus Rex? Nah. People have said because of the moon theme, because we're going with, obviously his hair is like a moon, maybe like some kind of lycanthrope thing we can do here. Maybe we can have Garling transform into a werewolf, or perhaps a warwolf, whichever he prefers, right? Anyway, some kind of werewolf creatures. Now, keep in mind, they're also going to be huge, right? Because, like, all of the yokai are massive, even, like, no, I don't think any of them are really, you could say, like, is the smallest. I guess Saturn's would have been technically the tiniest, but that's because he was a spider, so it's more about leg span than it is about height. The tallest would easily be Peter in the sandworm form. If you just stretch out his worm form all the way to the top, he would be the tallest. But they're all massive when they go into their yokai forms, right? So, yeah, Garling, definitely going to get a form. Pretty sure it's going to be something else. Maybe it might be a werewolf, maybe it might be something, but I don't think it's going to be the Ushioni, right? So another thing to bring up here is exactly how many people know about this, because this is actually going to be very relevant coming up into the next arc. Maybe not necessarily for the Straw Hats directly, but for cutting around the world and seeing other stuff going on, this is relevant. So, Is Eam and the Gorosei going to choose to reveal this to the general public, that there's a new member of the Gorosei? I highly doubt they're going to do that, right? Like, they're not going to, first of all, they don't care, really. I don't think the Gorosei care about their public image too much, right? Not to that regard. And also, like, things are getting so insane in the world right now, I really feel like they're just going to be like, you know what? We're pretty soon probably just going to have to reveal to the world we're giant yokai monsters anyway, with the way shit's been going. So whatever, who cares, right? I don't think they're going to release that to Morgans. Like, hey, Morgans, make sure to print that there's a new Gorosei on the board. And Morgans is going to be like, oh, well, okay, I'll maybe fit that in page 12. I got a lot of other stuff going on today, right? I got all this crazy stuff to talk about from Egghead, right? So, yeah, also, I think Morgans has gone off the reservation in a big way. I don't think Morgans is going to be listening to the Gorosei and the government as much anymore. You know what I mean? I think he's just going to go and print his own stuff, right? So I don't think the general public are going to know that Saturn died and then there's a new Garling, which is important because we now have Katarina Devon, who copied the powers of Saturn, or copied the form of Saturn at Egghead with Augur there and everything. So to clarify that a little bit, so Devon's Kitsune Zone, we don't know exactly the whole rule set on how that operates, but she can copy somebody's appearance, and even after they die, she still has it, because they copied Absalom, and then Absalom died. Don't know if Devon killed Absalom or if somebody else did, but either way, Absalom is dead, and Katarina can still transform into him, okay? We do not know if Devon has Absalom's, like, inherent, like, abilities and stuff like that. See, Absalom didn't have much beyond just the ability of the clear fruit, which is what Shiryu has right now. What I mean is, like, let's say Saturn's yokai form is not a devil fruit. Could Devon go into that form? She did copy Saturn when he was in the yokai form, his half yokai form. So people have said, like, does that mean whenever she transforms into Saturn, it has to be in the hybrid form? It can't be in the full spider form, or it can't be in his normal human form? I don't think that's how it works. I think that she copied, Saturn. She came in contact with Saturn's body, so she has carte blanche to transform into whatever form that he can take. At least that's the way I'm viewing this. So this isn't going to mess up Blackbeard's plan as much as you might think. Now, Blackbeard did say to Kobe during Hachinosu, like recently in the anime this episode aired, like, oh, my plan, say ha ha ha. Well, my plan is I'm going to use you as a blackmail, Kobe, to go to the government, and I'm going to become an official king of this nation, and I'm going to get an invite to Reverie. Say ha 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 ha. All right, so that was Blackbeard's plan. Now, it was obviously just step one in a greater plan, because there's no way that Blackbeard is like, ah, yes, I will become a politician, and then all of my dreams will come true. No, that's not where he's going to stop that. Obviously, he was probably like, I want to get up into Marijois, I want to get up into the Reverie, and then maybe from there I could take over the world, right? So probably not going to be able to do that as much as you would be able to because of Saturn. And also, dude, even if Devon was able to transform into Saturn and Saturn was still alive and they walked into Marijois, I feel like Eam would instantly know that that's not the real Saturn. I feel like like Eam, especially if Eam shared their power with Saturn, Eam would instantly know there is a pretender in our midst, something like that, right? So I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to use Saturn's form to go somewhere else, because you could pretty much do anything. If the general public does not know Saturn is dead and you show up as Saturn, like, it doesn't matter if it makes no sense. It doesn't matter if it's like, Saint Saturn, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be a Marijois. Silence, peon. You will now allow me into Impel Town and free all the prisoners. I mean, yeah, you're the ruler of the world, so I guess so, right? Okay, here's the key. That's something that people have brought up. It's just like, well, we got to get Impel Down back in on this. We have to have another prison break, because Dofi's in there, and you also have Mr. 2 Bon Clay. He's got to get out of there at some point. We got to see Mr. 2 again, right? And there's a bunch of other people that are probably locked up in Impel Down. We know Senor Pink is there. Senor Pink needs to be reunited with Frankie. So, the way this could work is Devon transforms into Saturn, shows up at Impel Down, and is like, I want you to free these prisoners. Maybe not like the entire prison, but like, I want a few prisoners freed. Now, let me ask you, because you might question, like, would they just do that for Saturn? From the perspective of everybody else in the world, except for a very, very few amount of people. Like, it would be the revolutionaries now, too, because the revolutionaries know about Eve now. But as far as the rest of the world is concerned, the Gorosei are the objective rulers of the entire world government. There is nobody higher than them. So this is not a matter of, like, let's say Saint Saturn shows up at Impel Down and is like, I request Doflamingo to be released to my care immediately. The Marines and the guards have nowhere to go from there. They can't be like, well, hold on, let me check with HQ. Saturn ranks higher than HQ. Well, hold on, let me check with the Tenryubito. Saturn is a Tenryubito. He is the highest rated Tenryubito. There's no one else higher than him to check. I mean, there's Eam, but they don't know about Eam, right? So, you know, they show up, it's like, Saturn, do you really want us to release all the prisoners? Yes. Is this a test? No. Okay, I guess you're one of the objective rulers of the world government. The Impel Down works for the world government. We can't, there's nothing else for us to do. Release the prisoners, you know? And ultimately, even if anybody does fight back, like let's say Magellan shows up and he's just like, I don't care who it is. I'm not letting anybody in my prison. This is what I'm supposed to protect. I don't care who you are. Actually, you know, it's interesting because Magellan fought against Mr. 2. And he knows there's devil fruits that can copy appearances. So maybe Magellan would be like, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense for one of the Gorosei to be here. And no, you're an imposter. You're a phony. A big, fat phony. And then you have Magellan maybe fighting against Saturn, or into Saturn turns back into Devon. So you have Devon versus Magellan. That would actually be cool. That would be fun. That'd be cool to see a rematch between Magellan and the Blackbeard Pirates, because Magellan just wiped the floor with them last time. Just covered them in poison and walked away like a badass. So that'd be cool if Blackbeard showed back up and he's like, remember me, poison guy? It's like, oh, I remember you, Blackbeard. And then this time, Blackbeard's more prepared. Or maybe Shiryu shows up and cuts down Magellan. That would be so sad. I don't want to see Magellan die. But at the same time, like, if anyone's going to cut Magellan down, I feel like Shiryu, that's the person it would be, right? Okay. I love how this is a video on Garling, and we looped back around to Impel Down somehow. But no, this is important, you know? It's like there's a new Gorosei, and now Devon has the form of the old Gorosei. Is that going to be relevant? And I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be like Devon goes back and is like, I could transform into Saturn now. And it's like, we just found out from our sources that Saturn's dead. Damn it! So, the only people also that know Saturn is dead is the 9 vice admirals that witnessed it on the ship. There was also a really big explosion when Saturn died, so probably a few other Marines are going to bring that up too. Like, sir, what happened? He's like, oh my god, Saturn is dead. He's like, no, keep this on the down low. Because remember, from the vice admiral's perspective, they are charged with protecting one of the rulers of the world, right? And he just died. So the vice admirals might be like, we have no idea what the hell just happened. He was talking to us, and then he started clutching his throat, and black smoke started coming out of him, and then he aged, and then he died. He exploded into a skeleton. We don't even know how that works, but that's how it worked. So I don't think the vice admirals are going to say shit to anybody. I don't think they're going to report. I think they're going to leave that part out of it, you know? They're going to leave that part out of the written report on Egghead, you know? Oh, Saturn also turned into a zombie and then died. You know, it's like, yeah, so it's the 9 vice admirals, and they're probably not even sure what the hell they just saw. And then the other Gorosei, Garling and Eam, are like the only people that really genuinely know that Saturn is dead and that Garling replaced him. So that's the way it is. So I don't mind that Saturn died the way he did. We know about Saturn's backstory with Bonnie and Kuma and Ginny. He died a death that honestly might not have been horrible enough for all the horrible shit that he had wrought on that family, but he died in a pretty awful way, so that was pretty cool. And that's the thing, we only know about Saturn's backstory right now. We don't know about the other Gorosei. The other Gorosei's backstory might be even worse, right? How could that be worse than what Saturn did? Saturn's might be the nicest one out of all of them, right? And just like, yeah, it could be definitely bad. Anyway, I'm going to get going. That's the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Apologize. I don't know if you could hear it, but they're like right next to my window cut down the street. This is the only time of the day I could film it because I have Yu-Gi-Oh! Later with Briggs and some other stuff going on today, so that's just the way it goes. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out. Let me know down below what you feel about this new patch with Garling and how that's going to go. Later. Signing out.